Welcome to Starbound, where every star tells a story. Today, the greatest conquerors the galaxy has ever seen, the Xe'kar, turn their eyes toward humanity. Let's get into the story. The galaxy whispered their name with a mix of awe and terror, the Xe'kar. Unbeaten, unbroken, a monolith of bioengineered warriors who'd carved out an empire through sheer might. Their gleaming obsidian ships were a common sight, each one a symbol of their indomitable will. Yet, within their ranks, a prophecy whispered of a potential downfall at the hands of an unlikely foe. It was a tale dismissed by most, for who could challenge the invincible Xe'kar? Far from the heart of the Xe'kar dominion, on the fringe of charted space, nestled Haven Colony. A beacon of human ingenuity and curiosity, Haven was a sanctuary for scientists, engineers, artists, and dreamers. It was a place where the thirst for knowledge outweighed the lust for conquest. Dr. Anya Petrova stood on the observation deck, her eyes fixed on the binary sunset. The colony's lead scientist Anya was a pragmatic woman with a sharp intellect and an unwavering belief in humanity's potential. Beside her stood Captain Miles Jackson, Haven's head of security. A veteran of old Earth conflicts, his calm demeanor masked a sharp tactical mind and a deep-seated protectiveness towards his people. "Beautiful, isn't it?" Anya asked, her voice barely audible over the hum of the station's machinery. "It is," Miles replied, his gaze scanning the horizon. "But beauty can be deceiving. We've received a coded transmission. A Xe'kar fleet is approaching." Anya's brow furrowed. "Diplomatic or hostile?" Miles shrugged. "Unknown, but with their reputation, it's best to prepare for anything." As the Xe'kar fleet emerged from hyperspace, the initial awe at their majestic ships quickly turned to unease. The lead ship, a colossal dreadnought, dwarfed Haven's modest station. The Xe'kar emissary, Commander Xarx, hailed the colony with a tone of formality laced with thinly veiled condescension. "Greetings, humans of Haven!" Xarx boomed through the comm channel, his voice deep and resonant. "We are the Xe'kar, and we come bearing greetings from the Galactic Council. We have heard of your endeavors, and we wish to establish diplomatic relations." Anya exchanged a worried glance with Miles before responding. "Welcome, Commander Xarx. We are honored by your visit. Haven Colony is open to peaceful exchange and cooperation." Xarx chuckled, the sound echoing through the comm system. "Cooperation? An admirable sentiment for a species so young and limited. We shall see how your actions match your words." The first contact meeting was a tense affair. The Xe'kar's warrior culture, with its emphasis on strength and hierarchy, clashed with the humans' collaborative and knowledge-driven society. Misunderstandings arose, cultural norms were misinterpreted, and a palpable tension filled the air. The first sign of trouble came when a Xe'kar warrior, his bioluminescent skin glowing with barely suppressed rage, shoved aside a human scientist during a demonstration of Haven's hydroponics system. The scientist, a young woman named Emily, stumbled back, her eyes wide with surprise and fear. Captain Jackson stepped forward, his voice calm but firm. "Please restrain yourself, warrior. We are here to learn from each other, not to engage in aggression." The Xe'kar warrior sneered. "Learn? From you weaklings? We have nothing to learn from a species that clings to such primitive methods." The tension in the room escalated as other humans moved to protect Emily. A hush fell over the gathered crowd, both Xe'kar and human, as they sensed the potential for violence. Xarx, who had been observing the exchange with an air of amusement, finally spoke. "Enough," he commanded, his voice booming through the room. "We did not come here to engage in petty squabbles. We are here to assess the value of this colony, and so far we are unimpressed." Anya stepped forward, her voice steady despite the rising tension. "Commander Xarx, we have much to offer. Our research into sustainable agriculture and renewable energy could benefit the entire galaxy." Xarx raised a skeptical brow. "Perhaps, but your technology is rudimentary, your defenses are laughable, and your warriors are non-existent. You have nothing to offer us." His words stung, but Anya refused to back down. "We may not be warriors in your sense of the word, Commander, but we are not without strength. We have survived on this harsh world through ingenuity, cooperation, and a will to thrive. We have much to teach, if you are willing to learn." Xarx's lips curled into a sneer. "We shall see, human. We shall see." The next few days were a delicate dance of diplomacy and thinly veiled hostility. The Xe'kar toured the colony, their every movement watched with a mixture of curiosity and apprehension. While they were impressed by some aspects of human technology, their overall attitude remained one of disdain. The tipping point came during a routine inspection of Haven's perimeter defenses. A Xe'kar scout venturing too close to a restricted area triggered an automated defense system. A warning shot whizzed past his head, narrowly missing him. The scout, startled and enraged, retaliated with a blast from his plasma rifle, damaging one of Haven's communication towers. This act of aggression, seen as a direct attack on the colony, triggered a swift response from Captain Jackson and his security team. A brief but intense firefight ensued, with the humans utilizing their knowledge of the terrain and improvised weaponry to repel the Xe'kar attackers. The Xe'kar, caught off guard by the humans' unexpected ferocity, suffered casualties. The skirmish ended as quickly as it began, leaving both sides shaken and on edge. The Xe'kar retreated to their ships, nursing their wounded and reevaluating their assessment of the humans. The humans, meanwhile, huddled together in their shelters, uncertain of what the future held. They had proven themselves capable of defending their home, but they knew this was only the beginning. The Xe'kar would not take this lightly. The aftermath of the skirmish hung heavy in the air. The colony's medical bay was abuzz with activity as the wounded were treated. Thankfully, no lives were lost, but the gravity of the situation was not lost on anyone. The Xe'kar would not let this go unanswered. In the colony's makeshift war room, Anya, Miles, and a handful of other leaders huddled around a holographic map. They debated their options, each word heavy with the weight of responsibility. Elder Silas, his weathered face etched with concern, spoke first. "We cannot match their strength," he said, his voice raspy. "We must sue for peace." Miles shook his head. "Peace? They see us as weak. Appeasement will only invite further aggression." Emiko Sato, her fingers flying across a datapad, interjected. "I agree. We need to prepare. I've been analyzing their comms. They're sending for reinforcements." Anya nodded grimly. "We need to make them understand we won't be easily conquered." A plan began to take shape. Haven's scientists and engineers, working around the clock, repurposed existing technology and developed new defenses. Miles and his security team trained the colonists in basic combat tactics, transforming farmers and artists into a makeshift militia. Emiko, meanwhile, delved deeper into the Xe'kar network, planting false information and subtly manipulating their communication channels. Days turned into weeks as Haven braced for the Xe'kar's return. A sense of grim determination settled over the colony. Even the children, sensing the tension in the air, played war games amongst themselves, their imaginations fueled by stories of human resilience and ingenuity. When the Xe'kar fleet returned, it was a sight that sent chills down the spines of every colonist. Dozens of obsidian ships blotted out the stars, their weapon systems primed and ready. The dreadnought that had arrived first now seemed dwarfed by the sheer size of the armada. Anya watched the spectacle from the observation deck, her heart pounding in her chest. She could feel the fear in the room, the palpable tension that crackled through the air. But beneath the fear, she sensed something else. A spark of defiance, a refusal to surrender. Miles stood beside her, his face grim but resolute. "They may be invincible," he said quietly, "but they've never faced us before." Anya nodded, a flicker of determination in her eyes. "We will show them what humanity is capable of." The Xe'kar launched their attack with overwhelming force. Missiles rained down on the colony, energy beams sliced through the atmosphere, and landing craft disgorged legions of bioengineered warriors. But Haven was ready. The colony's defenses, bolstered by Emiko's sabotage, held firm. The ground battle was a chaotic dance of laser fire and explosions. The Xe'kar, expecting an easy victory, found themselves bogged down in a war of attrition. The humans, fighting for their very survival, proved to be surprisingly tenacious. Haven's defenders, a ragtag mix of scientists turned soldiers, farmers wielding repurposed mining tools, and artists turned demolition experts, fought with a ferocity born of desperation. They knew every nook and cranny of their home, every tunnel and hidden passage. They used this knowledge to their advantage, setting traps, ambushing patrols, and disappearing into the labyrinthine tunnels before the Xe'kar could react. Miles, his weathered face streaked with grime and sweat, led a small squad through a narrow ravine. They planted explosives rigged to detonate as a Xe'kar armored column passed through. The resulting explosion sent debris and shrapnel flying, momentarily halting the Xe'kar advance. Meanwhile, Anya and her team worked tirelessly in the labs, analyzing captured Xe'kar technology. They discovered vulnerabilities in their energy shields, weaknesses in their communication systems, and flaws in their bioengineered physiology. Emiko, her eyes glued to her screens, exploited these weaknesses. She sent out encrypted signals that jammed Xe'kar sensors, overloaded their power grids, and even triggered malfunctions in their armor. Her hacking prowess proved to be a formidable weapon in Haven's arsenal. The Xe'kar commanders, accustomed to swift victories, grew increasingly frustrated. Their superior technology and numerical advantage were proving ineffective against the humans' unconventional tactics and sheer tenacity. Xarx, watching the battle unfold from the bridge of his dreadnought, slammed his fist against the console. "How are these primitives holding out?" He growled, his bioluminescent skin flashing with rage. "They should have been crushed by now." His second-in-command, a grizzled veteran named Xil, offered a cautious reply. "Their tactics are unorthodox, Commander. They seem to anticipate our every move. They are using our own technology against us." Emiko's voice crackled through the ship's comms, her words laced with mockery. "You underestimate the ingenuity of humans, Commander. We are not as primitive as you think." Xarx's eyes narrowed. "Silence, hacker. You will pay for your insolence." Emiko chuckled, her voice echoing through the ship. "I'm not on Haven anymore, Commander. I'm everywhere. You can't stop me." Her words sowed seeds of doubt in the minds of the Xe'kar. The humans were not just fighting back. They were adapting, learning, and evolving at an alarming rate. The morale of the Xe'kar forces began to waver. Their belief in their own invincibility, once unshakable, was now being tested. Cracks appeared in their unity as whispers of dissent spread through the ranks. Anya, monitoring the situation from Haven's command center, sensed a shift in the tide of the battle. "They're losing their nerve," she said to Miles, a flicker of hope in her eyes. Miles nodded, his lips forming a thin line. "But they're not beaten yet. We need to press our advantage." The humans, sensing the Xe'kar's growing vulnerability, launched a series of daring raids, striking at supply lines, disrupting communications, and sowing further chaos among their ranks. The Xe'kar, once a unified force, were now showing signs of strain. Their once impeccable formations were becoming ragged, their communication channels filled with static and conflicting orders. The seeds of doubt sown by Emiko had taken root, and the cracks in their unity were widening. On the ground, the human resistance intensified. Small, mobile units harassed the Xe'kar patrols, disappearing into the dense jungle or underground tunnels before reinforcements could arrive. Explosives planted on supply routes caused further disruption, while snipers picked off high-value targets from concealed positions. Miles, leading a squad of seasoned fighters, ambushed a Xe'kar convoy transporting vital supplies. The humans struck with lightning speed, utilizing EMP grenades to disable the vehicles and then overwhelming the disoriented soldiers with close-quarters combat. "They are like phantoms," one Xe'kar officer complained to his commander, his voice trembling with frustration. "They appear out of nowhere, strike, and then vanish without a trace." The commander, a hardened veteran named Krill, slammed his fist against the control panel. "Find them! We cannot allow these insects to dictate the terms of this war." But finding the humans proved to be an elusive task. They were masters of camouflage and deception, blending seamlessly into the environment and exploiting their intimate knowledge of the terrain. In the meantime, Anya and her team made a breakthrough in their research. They had deciphered the Xe'kar's energy shield technology and discovered a way to disrupt it temporarily. Emiko, using this new information, developed a prototype device that could create a localized EMP burst, effectively disabling the Xe'kar shields for a short period. "This could be our game changer," Anya said to Miles, her eyes shining with excitement. "If we can disable their shields during a coordinated attack, we can inflict significant damage." Miles nodded, his mind already racing through tactical possibilities. "We need to time it perfectly. We need to hit them hard and fast while their defenses are down." The humans began to formulate a plan. They would launch a series of diversionary attacks, drawing the Xe'kar forces away from their main base. Then, under cover of darkness, they would strike at the heart of the enemy, using Emiko's EMP device to disable their shields and unleash a devastating assault. As the Xe'kar grew increasingly desperate, they resorted to more brutal tactics. They bombarded civilian areas, hoping to break the human spirit, but this only served to harden the resolve of the defenders. The humans were fighting for their home, for their families, for their very existence. They would not surrender. The stage was set for a final showdown, a clash of wills between two vastly different species. The Xe'kar, once invincible, now faced an adversary that refused to be broken. The humans, once underestimated, now stood on the brink of a historic victory. The war for Haven reached its crescendo. The Xe'kar, once so confident in their invincibility, found themselves bogged down in a quagmire of their own making. Their superior technology and numerical advantage were no match for the tenacity, ingenuity, and sheer will of the human defenders. On the eve of their final stand, the humans gathered in the heart of the colony, their faces illuminated by the flickering light of makeshift torches. Anya stood before them, her voice echoing through the cavernous hall. "We have defied the odds," she proclaimed, her voice filled with a mixture of exhaustion and determination. "We have shown the Xe'kar that we are not the weak and primitive species they believed us to be. Tonight we strike back. Tonight we reclaim our home." Miles, his weathered face hardened by the trials of war, briefed the gathered fighters on the plan. Their mission was simple: create chaos, sow confusion, and strike at the heart of the Xe'kar command. Under the cover of darkness, the humans launched their offensive. Small strike teams infiltrated Xe'kar camps, sabotaging equipment, planting explosives, and creating distractions. The Xe'kar, already on edge, reacted with panicked confusion, their communications channels jammed with contradictory orders. Meanwhile, a specially trained team led by Emiko made their way towards the Xe'kar command center, a heavily fortified bunker deep within the jungle. They moved silently through the shadows, their footsteps muffled by the damp earth. Emiko, her heart pounding in her chest, held the EMP device tightly in her hand. It was a crude contraption, cobbled together from salvaged Xe'kar components and human ingenuity. But she had tested it, and she knew it would work. As they approached the bunker, they could hear the muffled voices of the Xe'kar officers within. Emiko crept closer, her fingers dancing across the control panel of the device. She took a deep breath and pressed the activation button. A wave of energy pulsed through the air, causing the lights in the bunker to flicker and die. The Xe'kar's energy shields, their primary defense, flickered and then collapsed. A moment of stunned silence followed, then a cacophony of alarms and panicked shouts. The humans stormed the bunker, their weapons blazing. The Xe'kar, disoriented and defenseless, were caught completely off guard. The fighting was brutal and intense, but the humans, fueled by adrenaline and a thirst for revenge, fought with a ferocity that surprised even themselves. Emiko, her face lit by the glow of her datapad, hacked into the Xe'kar's mainframe. She sent out a signal that deactivated their automated defenses, opening a path for Miles and his team to breach the inner sanctum. Zarks, caught unaware in his command chamber, barely had time to react before Miles burst through the door, his weapon leveled. The Xe'kar commander, his eyes wide with disbelief, reached for his own weapon, but Miles was faster. A single shot rang out, echoing through the bunker. Zark slumped to the floor, his reign of terror finally at an end. With the command center in disarray, the humans pressed their advantage. Miles's team secured the surrounding area, ensuring no reinforcements could reach the beleaguered Xe'kar. Meanwhile, Anya and her scientists moved in, their eyes wide with a mix of awe and apprehension as they surveyed the advanced technology within. They discovered vast databanks filled with information about the Xe'kar Empire, their history, their culture, and their secrets. Anya knew this knowledge could be invaluable, not just for the humans, but for all the species oppressed by the Xe'kar. Emiko, however, was more interested in the present than the past. She worked tirelessly, her fingers flying across the keyboards, accessing the Xe'kar communication network. She sent out a coded message, a rallying cry to all those who had suffered under the Xe'kar's rule. Across the galaxy, on countless worlds, the message was received. It sparked a flame of rebellion, a resurgence of hope. The oppressed rose up, their anger and resentment fueled by the knowledge that the invincible Xe'kar had been defeated on a backwater planet by a handful of determined humans. The Xe'kar, already reeling from the loss of their command center, now faced a multi-front war. Their forces, once concentrated on Haven, were now spread thin as they tried to quell uprisings and rebellions across their empire. The tide of the war had turned. The humans, once underestimated and dismissed, were now the catalysts for a galactic revolution. Their victory at Haven had shattered the myth of Xe'kar invincibility, inspiring countless others to rise up and fight for their freedom. Back on Haven, the humans celebrated their hard-won victory, but they knew their fight was far from over. They had struck a blow against the Xe'kar, but the Empire still stood, wounded but not defeated. Anya addressed the gathered colonists, her voice filled with a mix of pride and caution. "We have achieved a great victory," she said, "but we must not become complacent. The Xe'kar are a formidable enemy, and they will not give up easily. We must remain vigilant, we must continue to fight, and we must never forget the lessons we have learned." Miles, standing beside her, nodded in agreement. "We have shown the galaxy what humanity is capable of," he said, his voice ringing with conviction. "We have proven that even the invincible can be defeated. But our true strength lies not in our weapons or our technology, but in our spirit, our resilience, and our unwavering belief in a better future." The humans of Haven, battered but unbowed, looked towards the future with a renewed sense of purpose. They knew that the road ahead would be long and arduous, but they were ready. They were the underdogs who had defied the odds, the ones who had proven that even the invincible could be defeated. The Xe'kar High Command, once a bastion of unwavering confidence, was now a scene of disarray. The holographic displays flickered with reports of uprisings, defections, and losses. The once proud commanders, their faces etched with stress and doubt, argued amongst themselves, their voices echoing through the dimly lit chamber. High Commander Clytus, Zarx's successor, slammed his fist against the table, his bioluminescent markings flashing in agitation. "Enough!" he roared. "We cannot allow this rabble to dismantle our empire. We must crush this rebellion before it spreads further." A chorus of voices rose in agreement, but a few dissidents dared to speak up. "Perhaps we should reconsider our approach," one commander suggested tentatively. "The humans, they fight with a tenacity we have not encountered before. Perhaps there is something to be learned from them." Clytus glared at the speaker. "Learned from a primitive species? Preposterous! We are the Xe'kar. We do not learn, we conquer." But the seeds of doubt had been sown. The Xe'kar's belief in their own invincibility had been shaken, and the cracks in their unity were widening. Clytus, sensing the growing dissent, knew he needed to act decisively. "We will launch a full-scale assault on Haven," he declared, his voice booming through the chamber. "We will make an example of them, and the rest of the galaxy will tremble before our might." Meanwhile, on Haven, the humans were preparing for the inevitable counterattack. They knew the Xe'kar would not go down without a fight, and they were determined to meet them head-on. The colony was a hive of activity. Engineers worked tirelessly to repair and upgrade defenses, scientists developed new weapons and tactics, and the makeshift militia drilled relentlessly, honing their skills in preparation for the coming battle. Anya and Miles, the unlikely leaders of this ragtag resistance, found themselves working closely together. Their initial distrust had given way to a grudging respect, then to a deep bond forged in the crucible of war. "They're coming," Anya said one evening, her voice barely a whisper as she studied the tactical displays. "Their fleet is mobilizing." Miles nodded, his gaze fixed on the holographic map. "We have to be ready. This is it, Anya, the final stand." Anya reached out and squeezed his hand, her touch a silent reassurance. "We've come too far to give up now. We will fight, and we will win." The news of the impending attack spread through the colony, casting a pall of apprehension over the populace. But there was no panic, no despair. The humans had faced the Xe'kar before, and they had survived. They knew what was at stake, and they were prepared to make the ultimate sacrifice to protect their home and their freedom. As the Xe'kar fleet approached, a sense of grim determination settled over Haven. The humans knew they were facing overwhelming odds, but they also knew they had something the Xe'kar lacked: the will to fight for something greater than themselves. The Xe'kar fleet, a menacing armada of obsidian ships, emerged from hyperspace, their arrival heralded by a ripple in the fabric of reality. The sheer size of the force was a testament to their determination to crush the human resistance once and for all. Haven Colony, bathed in the cold light of the binary stars, braced for impact. The human defenders, their faces grim but resolute, manned their stations, their fingers poised over triggers and control panels. The atmosphere crackled with tension, the silence broken only by the hum of machinery and the whispered prayers of those seeking solace in their faith. The Xe'kar attack began with a devastating barrage of orbital bombardments. Missiles rained down from the heavens, their fiery trails etching scars across the planet's surface. Energy beams lanced through the atmosphere, vaporizing anything in their path. The ground shook with the force of the impacts, and the air filled with the acrid stench of smoke and burning metal. But the humans were not caught off guard. Their early warning systems had detected the Xe'kar fleet's approach, giving them precious time to prepare. Deep underground bunkers sheltered the majority of the colonists, while the defenders took up positions in fortified outposts, their weapons primed and ready. The first wave of Xe'kar landing craft descended through the smoke and debris, their hatches disgorging legions of bioengineered warriors. The humans met them with a hail of laser fire, their improvised defenses proving surprisingly effective. Captain Jackson, his face etched with the strain of battle, directed his troops from a makeshift command post. "Hold the line!" He barked through the comms, his voice echoing in the helmets of his soldiers. "They may have numbers, but we have the advantage of terrain and surprise. Make every shot count." The battle raged for hours, a chaotic dance of laser fire, explosions, and desperate hand-to-hand combat. The Xe'kar, expecting a swift victory, found themselves bogged down in a bloody stalemate. The humans fighting for their lives and their home proved to be a far more formidable foe than they had anticipated. In the heart of the colony, Emiko worked feverishly, her fingers dancing across the holographic interface of her custom-built console. She had infiltrated the Xe'kar's communication network once again, sowing confusion and discord among their ranks. False orders were issued, supply lines were disrupted, and vital information was leaked to the human defenders. Anya, monitoring the battle from the colony's main control center, saw the impact of Emiko's efforts. The Xe'kar's movements were becoming erratic, their attacks less coordinated. A flicker of hope ignited in her heart. Perhaps, just perhaps, they could turn the tide of this battle. But the Xe'kar were not easily deterred. They had a reputation to uphold, an empire to maintain. They would not allow themselves to be defeated by a species they considered inferior. The battle for Haven was far from over. The battle for Haven raged on, a relentless symphony of destruction and defiance. The Xe'kar, their initial shock and disbelief replaced by a cold fury, doubled down on their efforts to crush the human resistance. They deployed heavier artillery, orbital strikes intensified, and waves of genetically enhanced warriors poured onto the battlefield. Despite their valiant efforts, the human defenders began to buckle under the relentless assault. Their numbers dwindled, their supplies ran low, and their once impregnable defenses crumbled under the Xe'kar's relentless onslaught. Captain Jackson, his uniform stained with the blood of both friend and foe, rallied his troops, his voice a beacon of hope in the chaos. "We cannot falter now!" he roared, his words echoing through the comms. "Remember who you are fighting for. Remember your families, your friends, your home. We will not let them take what is ours." His words resonated with the defenders, igniting a spark of defiance in their weary hearts. They fought back with renewed vigor, their every shot, every strike a testament to their unwavering spirit. In the labs, Anya and her team worked tirelessly to complete their prototype weapon, the one they hoped could turn the tide of the battle. They had discovered a flaw in the Xe'kar's power grid, a vulnerability they could exploit. The weapon, a modified energy cannon, was designed to overload the Xe'kar ship's power systems, causing them to shut down temporarily. Meanwhile, Emiko, her eyes bloodshot from staring at screens for hours, continued her relentless cyber warfare. She had infiltrated the Xe'kar's mainframe, her code weaving through their systems like a digital virus. She had discovered a hidden communication channel, one used by the Xe'kar High Command for top-secret discussions. Listening in, she learned of Clytus's desperation, his growing paranoia, and the cracks forming in his leadership. She also discovered something far more valuable: the location of the Xe'kar's flagship, the heart of their armada. Emiko relayed this vital information to Anya and Miles. "This is our chance," she said, her voice filled with a mixture of excitement and exhaustion. "If we can take out their flagship, we can cripple their command and control, throw their entire fleet into chaos." Anya and Miles shared a knowing glance. They understood the risks, the slim chance of success, but they also knew that this was their best, perhaps their only, opportunity to turn the tide of the war. A daring plan was formed. A small team of Haven's most skilled pilots, led by Miles himself, would launch a suicide mission. They would use captured Xe'kar fighters, modified with human technology, to infiltrate the enemy fleet and deliver the payload, the energy cannon, aimed directly at the flagship's power core. It was a long shot, a desperate gamble. But the humans had nothing left to lose. They had already defied the odds, proven the Xe'kar were not invincible. Now, they would risk everything for a chance to secure their freedom and a future free from oppression. The stolen Xe'kar fighters, their sleek hulls painted in the earthy tones of Haven's terrain, streaked through the void towards the Xe'kar fleet. Miles, his hands gripping the controls, felt a mix of adrenaline and trepidation coursing through his veins. This was a suicide mission, a desperate gamble, but it was their only hope. Beside him, Lieutenant Anya Novikova, Haven's top pilot and Miles's trusted second-in-command, kept a steady hand on her controls. "Ready when you are, Captain," she said, her voice calm and resolute. The other pilots, a mix of veteran spacers and young hotshots, echoed her sentiment. They were a diverse group, united by their shared determination to protect their home and their people. The Xe'kar fleet, a sprawling mass of ships, seemed to fill the void before them. The flagship, a gargantuan dreadnought bristling with weapons, stood at the center, its imposing silhouette a symbol of the Xe'kar's power and arrogance. Miles, following Emiko's guidance, navigated his fighter through the maze of enemy ships. They flew low, weaving through the asteroid fields that surrounded the fleet, their transponders broadcasting a false Xe'kar signal to avoid detection. The Xe'kar, preoccupied with the ongoing ground battle and the chaos sown by Emiko's hacking, were oblivious to the impending threat. They had grown complacent, their confidence in their own superiority blinding them to their vulnerabilities. As they approached the flagship, Miles could feel his heart pounding in his chest. This was it, the moment of truth. He took a deep breath, steadied his nerves, and gave the order to attack. The human fighters peeled off, each one targeting a different section of the flagship. They unleashed a barrage of laser fire, their modified weapons tearing through the Xe'kar's shields like paper. The dreadnought shuddered under the impact, its alarms blaring as its crew scrambled to respond. Miles, his eyes fixed on the target coordinates provided by Emiko, guided his fighter towards the flagship's power core. He could see the massive energy conduits snaking across the hull, their blue glow illuminating the surrounding space. He took aim, his finger tightening on the trigger. A moment of hesitation, a fleeting thought of his family back on Haven, and then he fired. The energy cannon roared, unleashing a beam of concentrated energy that sliced through the flagship's hull like a hot knife through butter. It struck the power core dead center, triggering a catastrophic chain reaction. The dreadnought convulsed, its lights flickering and dying. A shockwave rippled through the ship, knocking crew members off their feet. Then, with a deafening roar, the power core exploded, engulfing the flagship in a blinding inferno. The shockwave rippled through the surrounding fleet, causing several ships to collide. The Xe'kar, their command and control shattered, descended into chaos. Some ships attempted to flee, while others engaged in desperate futile battles amongst themselves. Miles, his fighter battered but still intact, pulled away from the wreckage, a triumphant grin spreading across his face. He had done it. He had struck a blow at the heart of the Xe'kar Empire, and the consequences would be felt throughout the galaxy. News of the flagship's destruction spread like wildfire through the Xe'kar fleet. Commanders, already demoralized and confused, panicked. Some ordered their ships to retreat, others engaged in desperate suicidal attacks against the human defenders. The once formidable armada was now a chaotic mess of conflicting orders and shattered morale. On Haven, a wave of jubilation swept through the colony as the news of the flagship's destruction reached them. Anya and Miles, standing side by side in the command center, exchanged a relieved smile. They had done it. They had defied the odds and struck a decisive blow against their oppressors. But their victory was not without cost. Many brave souls had sacrificed their lives in the defense of Haven. As the dust settled and the smoke cleared, the colonists gathered to mourn their fallen comrades, their faces etched with grief and gratitude. In the weeks that followed, the Xe'kar Empire crumbled from within. The rebellion, fueled by the humans' example, spread like a wildfire, engulfing entire star systems. The once mighty Xe'kar, their invincible image shattered, were forced to retreat, their forces scattered and their leadership in disarray. The Galactic Council, now free from Xe'kar dominance, underwent a period of unprecedented transformation. Representatives from countless worlds, once silenced or marginalized, now had a voice. They debated, they argued, they compromised, but ultimately they forged a new path forward, a path towards a more just and equitable galaxy. Haven Colony, once an obscure outpost on the edge of explored space, became a symbol of hope and defiance. The humans, once underestimated and dismissed, were now celebrated as heroes. Their story was told and retold, inspiring countless others to rise up against oppression and fight for their freedom. Anya and Miles, their names etched in the annals of galactic history, returned to their lives on Haven. They had seen the horrors of war, the depths of human cruelty, and the heights of courage and sacrifice. They emerged from the conflict changed, wiser, and more determined than ever to make a difference in the world. In the years that followed, Haven flourished. The colony grew and expanded, becoming a hub of scientific research, technological innovation, and cultural exchange. The humans, their spirit unbroken, continued to explore the vast expanse of the cosmos, seeking knowledge and understanding, forging new alliances, and working towards a brighter future for all sentient beings. The prophecy of the Xe'kar elders had come to pass, but not in the way they had expected. Their downfall was not brought about by a superior force or a technological marvel, but by a group of ordinary people, united by their shared values and their unwavering belief in the power of the human spirit. The Xe'kar had learned a valuable lesson. Invincibility is an illusion. True strength lies not in brute force or technological superiority, but in the courage, resilience, and unwavering spirit of those who fight for what is right. And in the end, it was these qualities, embodied by the humans of Haven, that proved to be the most powerful weapon of all.